opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the hosts and do not necessarily reflect the views of any other individual or entity.
I think as a new RMT, someone just starting out after school, I really encourage you to work in a clinic, in a spa, like work under someone, right? And get kind of like the flow of how, these businesses run. I think even in the first episode, Steph and I were saying that, kind of I gravitated to like the bigger companies because I knew they were the ones following the rules or mostly going to follow the rules, and
Yeah.
I can learn from how they run their business and then just take little things that they do and implement it in my business. And that's really what I did, because I actually didn't venture out into doing my mobile business
Hmm.
like 100% full time until I think it was like 2021.
It's Maya time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of MyoInsights. I am Shireen the RMT, and today I am solo. I don't have my co-host, my wonderful co-host Stephanie, the massage therapist, but I do have our wonderful producer Raj, who's here to help me today. And he is our producer from Pod Mentors. Hey Raj.
Hey, Shireen. Glad to be back here and doing another co-host kind of duty for
Yeah,
Steph.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's build this conversation into your side of the woods. Let's make it interesting.
yeah.
I want to take this back into your genesis because, of course, Steph had her own episode last episode. So Uh, let's start with your internal motivations and what got you into massage therapy. I want to build into that.
What got me into massage therapy? So I think in the first episode I did speak briefly just about working at a clinic that, wasn't I wasn't really uh ge- getting job fulfillment with working as a, physiotherapist assistant, which, that job is a great job, but just for me personally, it just wasn't fulfilling me the way I wanted to be fulfilled in my career. And, I kind of navigated towards the massage therapists that were working there and, getting a little interested in what they do on a daily basis. But to be honest, it was really the push of my husband's family. I don't
Awesome.
know if you know, in I'm Caribbean and Jamaican. So, sometimes when they motivate you, they kind of like push you in a way that like makes fun of you a little bit, right? So puts
Mm,
you on the spot and then lets you realize that maybe I should be making some changes. But it's all good. Like you have to have tough skin to deal with a Caribbean sometimes. So
interesting.
when I met my husband, and like he was introducing me to his family, and like I was talking about my career, saying what I do for a living, and then his brother stood up and said, "You don't make any money doing that." And I kind of looked, I was so embarrassed because I was like, how dare he talk about me not making any money, or like, basically insinuating that my career, wasn't financially, rewarding. And he was like, you know what you need to do? You need to be a massage therapist. And I was thinking, that is so funny because I was thinking about switching over my career. And here he brings up being a massage therapist. And he was like, yeah, being a massage therapist is great. You can make great money doing that, and you're still kind of in the same profession. So
Mm,
after him kind of embarrassing me in front of the family and then telling me that I'm pretty much broke, I really started thinking a lot more that I need to navigate and maybe think about taking this career. So I started studying, and researching different type of schools that offer massage therapy, talking to other massage therapists as well. And I just said, you know what, Shreen, it's never too late. You're just gonna get it done, right? So I spoke
interesting.
with my husband about it, and he encouraged me a lot as well. And he was just like, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." And I just registered for school and went from there. I never even had a massage before going to school. Actually, I
Mm,
didn't even have a
interesting.
massage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this was more like the motivation, the internal motivation came from family before it became some kind of purposeful direction, I guess the way I see it.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's nice that you connected this to. It's pretty interesting you connected this to school. So let's continue the story from there. You mentioned school. So what was the feeling when you transitioned? You said you were switching careers, and you didn't
Yes.
mention which career that was, but let's build into that. So from your previous career, what was the transition, and how did it feel transitioning and going back to school? Going back, I'm sure when you started massage therapy, you went straight into zero. It was not you mentioned you had no knowledge before set getting into it. So how was the transition from your previous job to previous career to massage therapy when you were going back to school?
Well, it wasn't too bad just because the previous career was still like in that rehabilitation, environment. Like the clinic I worked in did have massage therapists, had acupuncturists, chiropractors, physiotherapists. So I already knew how to work with those other health professionals. But, I was always under the guidance of, a physiotherapist or a chiropractor, right? Like I was their
Mm,
assistant. So navigating towards, kind of operating treatments on my own without getting that direction, that was a difference. And in terms of the two careers, and then
mm,
also massage therapy school is a lot more intense in terms of studying, knowing anatomy, knowing the different massage techniques,
yeah.
understanding the physiology of the body as well too. So the program was a lot more intense than the program that I took to become a physiotherapy assistant, right?
Mm.
Massage therapy school, I would say it was pretty challenging for me. Like I cried a lot of days at
Oh.
in massage therapy school. I just didn't realize the amount of workload and the amount of studying that was required and memorization required, and
Mm,
just understanding of how to create a treatment plan, a proper treatment plan for our client.
mm,
There was a lot of stress actually when I was in massage school. But going back to continuing having that support from my family, I think that is what really pushed me through a lot of the times, because in massage school I actually failed one of my subjects, one of the core health science subjects.
mm.
And I remember when I got the news that I didn't pass that class, and I would have to take this class again in order to move on to my second semester. And I was thinking, I tried my best, and I didn't succeed. And I remember calling my husband, and I just started pouring out tears out of my eyes, and he
Mm.
couldn't even understand what I was saying. And then once, I was able to actually say proper words and, dry up my tears a little bit.
Mm.
He was like, "That's it? You just failed a class?" He's like, I thought somebody died, or, something serious happened. He's like,
Yeah.
you can, there's nothing wrong with that. He's like, sometimes you fail in life, but
Yeah.
the most important thing is that you get back up and you try again, and you don't let that failure bring you down, right?
Mm.
So hearing that from him made me realize that even though at the time I thought it was like the end of the world for me, I was never going to become a massage therapist because I failed this class.
Yeah.
He made me realize that I all I had to do was just do it over again. And he was like, "You already did it once. You already know what to expect, right? So what's
Yeah.
the problem with doing it again?" And I realized that it wasn't that much of a big deal, and I did the course again, and I was able to move on in my massage therapy course successfully after that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
So, Steph mentioned this when she was going through her notes because on the previous episode, for those who tuned in, Steph was reviewing her notes. So this was pretty interesting that when she looked back at all her notes and everything, she had like 10 cases of books from
yeah,
college, and I'm sure you also have a collection of books that
yes.
scrape by. She actually mentioned that there's this connection between knowing the books basic, but once you get out and experience, it's a different ball game. I don't know whether you agree to that statement.
Yes, I definitely do agree to that, because when you're in school, like, you're so focused on every little detail, right? Because you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you are, not missing any detail in terms of creating the best and safest treatment plan for this client, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of that stresses you out because you're thinking, well, what about this? Will they present with this? Okay, well, what does that mean? And we've never experienced these type of injuries or conditions in real life, so
Yeah.
we wouldn't know how to navigate ourselves, right? We're just strictly going by kind of what the book says, but
Yeah.
can't really see past, the case. Because there was one saying that was in school. It was kind of like, fake it till you make it type of thing, right? Because,
Mm.
sometimes when you're given a case in school, the person that you're treating is not actually doesn't actually present with those dysfunctions, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
hard for you to think like, okay, these are the best techniques to use to change the tissue, because the tissue is not going to change the way it's supposed to, because the person is not actually experiencing what the case says. But then when
Okay.
you get out in the real world and you actually, really feel those fascial restrictions, really feel when somebody has like reduced range of motion or, improper posture, and then you realize, okay, the stuff that I have been learning in school actually can be applied now. I
Yeah.
remember there was times where, I would think, oh, I would never see anyone that has these type of dysfunctions or conditions ever. And sometimes, some days you just see relaxation, some days you see chronic upper back pain, chronic back pain, and you kind of like consistently see the same thing day by day. And then you'll
Yeah.
just have like that one person or maybe two people that come in and you're like, oh, I can finally apply what I've learned in school, right? Because
Yeah.
they're like textbook. They are exactly, this case that your teacher gave you. And now you can actually work on this person in real life and understand how to navigate through that. So I think, in school, it's hard to really understand how the techniques and work can change, because sometimes you're not always dealing with someone that actually is presenting with that. But then when you get in real life, you realize, well, what I was learning is right, and I was
Yeah.
thankful enough to go to a school that really did give me a lot of exposure to
Yeah.
different type of clients, different type of conditions, different type of dysfunction. So once I got out there, I really didn't feel like there was anything that I couldn't do. I was a little bit overconfident.
Yeah.
But yeah, like getting that not red flag, that green flag, light bulb a moment where I'm like, oh, I know how to do this, right? I've been taught how to do this. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do think there is a definite difference between, studying in school, studying cases, reading books, and then applying it to actual real life. And then when you get out in the career, you realize that, these things actually are working.
Yeah. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. It's pretty interesting you built in that motivation, because my follow-up question for those who are listening and those who are tuning in, what are the type of motivations that you can take from school, and what can you take from, outside? Because you mentioned also in the couple of episodes before that you also have your mobile business, which we are transitioning,
Hmm.
because we
Yes.
finished the school section of this conversation. So so since you already added the motivation for school and for students, and I hope those who are tuning in would be inspired by what you've mentioned, let's transition from school and let's graduate from that and let's get into the real world. That's that's an interesting transition right there.
Yeah, yeah, it is
So
an interesting transition.
in this transition, before we even start, we talk about the business and how the business has been going through. Of course, as always, let's go to the genesis, and the genesis of this by asking the
Yeah.
motivation of what got you into the mobile massage therapy side. And you mentioned also in episode 2, which was very clear that um, the difference between you and Steph was, of course, that you chose to do you chose to be mobile while Steph is home based. So
Yes.
that's an interesting dynamic for a conversation between you two. So, what motivated you to get into the mobile side? Why didn't you opt for the same thing like Steph?
For me personally, it was just the space. Obviously when you first start out in your career, you're a bit broke.
True.
So, getting that money to have a space. I know I wasn't able to, have that at that time.
Yeah.
And then again, like, I've always said it's great to have a support system in your professional world, have a group of friends that you can lean on in your professional world. And I spoke with some senior massage therapists, and I kind of asked them how they started off, being, their own, starting pretty much their own business. Because, when we work as massage therapists, even if when we're in a clinic, most of the time we're still subcontracted, right? We're still in somewhat our running our own business in that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of them did say that they started off with mobile, and from mobile they transitioned into, were able to make enough money to transition to having their own space. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to sign another contract with another clinic because that's the only way that I would get a space.
Hmm.
What can I do to start my own practice? And I did, like I said, I didn't have the money or the space in my own home to start my business in that way. So I just started, putting the word out there that I was offering mobile services
Yeah.
to people, that were interested in these type of services, right? In the
Yeah.
beginning, I would tell you the first year that I launched my mobile service, I
Hmm.
didn't have any clients. None.
Oh.
So I still had to work in a clinic, right?
Oh.
Um,
Interesting.
and it was this one client. Obviously I'm not going to mention my client's name, confidentiality.
NDAs.
But he was an old coworker of mine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I met him. I was shopping one day, and then we just reunited. It's like, hey, how are you doing? We haven't seen you in a long time. Kind
Yeah.
of like, what are you doing with your life? And then I mentioned to him that I'm an RMT, and it was funny because he was moving like close to like my neighborhood, and he was like, I was looking for an RMT. Can I, book with you? And
Yeah.
I also want to, book my family as well too, right? And I was like, great. Like, I did not let him know that he was actually my first client ever. I made it
Yeah.
seem like I was running this mobile business, and everything was great, but in reality he was definitely my first client.
Wow. That's
So I
interesting.
booked him. And in terms of like booking and billing, like again, having that support system and having those, professional friends, they kind of helped me with how to do the booking, how to do the billing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I booked him, showed up at his house, provided the treatment for him. I was a little lost in the beginning because I didn't even know how to use my software in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if he knew that I didn't know how to do it, but anyways, it was a success. He enjoyed his treatment, and then from there, like I said, he made his promise of referring his wife with me. So I started treating him. Then I started treating his wife. Then
Hmm.
the children were also getting massages, and then he actually was referring me a lot as well too. So from
Hmm.
his referrals were referring me. And then also, um, there was another lady that I connected with, and she was referring her coworkers as well, and that were kind of living in my neighborhood. So, that's kind of how my business just started booming, right? After a
Wow.
year of nothing, meeting this one, meeting an old friend, coworker,
Yeah.
promoting
Yeah.
myself to him, and then from there it just spiraled. Everything was
Yeah.
going great after that, right? And even till this day, because I'm so busy, like clients cannot get with me at least like sometimes 2-3 months in, but
Yeah.
anytime he calls me, he's always like, I've been with you for so long, Shireen. He's like I'm a VIP. He's like, I need to have you need to have availability for me. He's like, you're too busy for me now. And he's like, I helped you a little bit, because he knows that he did give me a lot of
Yeah.
referrals. So he's like, oh, then the other day he was even telling me, he's like, I'm gonna stop referring you because you're not available for me anymore.
Well, if he's happened to be an audience on Mayo Insights, shout out to him. Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. Yeah.
So this is one question based on what I learned. I mean, what I learned from what you said was it always starts at one. It never starts at
Yes.
zero. So
Yes.
it's just a matter of timing and luck. It's a combination of timing, luck, and everything will fall and the stars will align.
Yes.
I wanna pull this back because I actually didn't ask this. I never got to ask this question with Steph, and hopefully, I get to ask you this. Is that I noticed that you mentioned you spoke to your mentors and the seniors on
Mm-hmm.
starting on mobile business if you don't have a budget. But I'm pretty sure for RMTs, they want to skin the cat five ways, and of course, some RNTs probably they don't have a space like what Steph has, or
Yeah.
they might not have a budget for mobile. What are the other ways to skin a cat after graduating from RMTs? Are there any other options aside from the two?
To be honest, you don't really need a lot of startup money. Like it again, it all depends on where you want to start. So obviously, if you want to rent a space, you're going to have that first and last month rent, and you're going into, like, you're kind of going in with $0 to earn, right? Because you have
Yeah,
to build up your clientele
yeah,
in that way. And then even with the mobile business, all you need is a massage table and a car,
yeah, yeah.
right? So like the startup money is not like, you don't really need a lot of startup money to start a business as a massage therapist. But I feel like, yeah, if it's not in your home that you're providing the massages, then you're renting a space like within, like, a medical building, or
Yeah,
maybe like a multidisciplinary clinic or something like that, where you're renting a space,
yeah.
or the mobile business. And to be honest, I don't really see a lot of RMTs doing the mobile business. Every
Mm.
time when I get people inquiring, they're just like, wow, I didn't even know that this was an option, right?
Mm.
I know in the area that I practice mostly, when I first started practicing, I was pretty much the only one out there. I remember when somebody called me and they're like, yeah, I remember the black girl that does mobile business. And I was like, oh, is
Mm.
that how my name is being spread a little
Yeah,
bit as the as
yeah,
as the black girl that does the mobile business? But thankfully at that time it was like a lot of like pro black support for black businesses and stuff like that. So this is where I was getting a lot more people in my community calling me,
yeah,
and then realizing that there wasn't a lot of services that where massage therapists were going to clients' homes. So I was
mm.
kind of like one in a million type of
Wow,
service for clients, or
interesting.
it just in my area there wasn't that much. Hmm.
Interesting, interesting. I mean, wow, that's pretty much that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah. If memory serves, I think this was also a part of the opening episode one, or it was episode two, where you guys also mentioned that you guys also worked. I don't know whether it was right, but if my question is formulated right, but the way I remembered, there were some experiences that you guys worked with spas. I do remember it
Yes.
was mentioned. So I guess is that also one way of starting when being mobile is not in the option, or being home based is not an option, is being an intern also part of that option, and then from there build things up, is that also one way?
Um, I think now they're starting that, but like being an intern, it's hard to be an intern. I think more it's better to have more like just mentorship
Yeah,
while you're in your business, like while you're trying to grow your practice. But the spa, like working in a spa as well too, I would categorize that as like working in a, maybe like in a clinic space, a spa space, like having a room that you don't have to necessarily pay for every month, right?
yeah, yeah,
So when you are working in those settings, you're still, you're still having an expense. It's just that it's being taken directly out of your pay, right?
yeah, yeah,
So it's more like a percentage wage that you're getting. So the spa or the clinic will take like 20 or 30% of your earnings,
yeah,
and then you would get the rest of the earnings. So you're kind of still paying for that space to practice out of, but you don't have to give money or save up that money every month. It's automatically going to be deducted.
yeah.
Yeah, so I do like it
Yeah.
that way too.
Yeah. Basically, the way I understand it, on in terms of the services, it's more like mobile and home base is more freelance work, and then working
Yes.
for spas and working for clinic is more like a regular 9 to 5 employment, but it still serves the purpose
Yes,
of
yes.
earning somehow. So yeah,
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
pretty
I do
pretty
like
interesting.
both. Like I think as a new RMT, someone just starting out after school, I really encourage you to work in a clinic, in a spa, like work under someone, right? And get kind of like the flow of how, these businesses run. I think even in the first episode, Steph and I were saying that, kind of I gravitated to like the bigger companies because I knew they were the ones following the rules, or mostly going to follow the rules, and
Yeah,
I can learn from how they run their business, and then just take little things that they do and implement it in my business. And that's really what I did, because I actually didn't venture out into doing my mobile business
hmm.
like 100% full time until I think it was like 2021. So even
Hmm.
before that, even though I've been doing this for like 8, 9 years, I've been doing mobile business. Before that, it was always a part time basis. I always still relied on working at the clinics and getting that, guaranteed income, right? At the clinics, because the clinics were always busy. And my
Yeah,
mobile business, again, like being 100% on your own,
yeah.
you have to, outweigh. Sometimes you're not going to be busy, but at the clinics, you're most likely going to be busy. So for years, I worked in the clinics, and then I also did my mobile business as a part time
Wow, wow.
basis. Yeah, I
That
did that for a long time. And
so
then when I
wow.
started having so many mobile clients where I was not able to navigate working at the clinic, plus there was times where I would work at the clinic, and then after going to the clinic, I was going to a client's home, or vice versa, going to a client's
Oh,
home before going to the clinic, and it was pretty draining, right?
yeah.
doing
I can
doing both
imagine.
things.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
so I made the decision that I was going to just, I was like, Shireen, you have enough clients. Why are you still at these clinics that you're miserable at? Because I
Yeah,
just, again, everyone's different. I just felt like I had enough experience at the
yeah,
clinics. I already knew how they ran, and I just didn't want, like you said, you have more of a freelance, you have more availability. You can set your schedule the way you want to,
yeah,
and I needed that flexibility in my life, right, at that
yeah,
time. So I was just like, you know what, Shreen, just go for it.
yeah.
Just do your mobile full time. And I started doing it full time, and it was a success. Like, I was definitely, my weeks were being booked, and they were being filled,
Wow,
even at a full time availability as well. Part time,
wow.
I was like overworked, and then full time, it was a nice happy medium for me. Yes.
Yeah. I want to actually tune this down a bit because I understand that we're talking about the professional side, because I also want to talk about something that I guess is not really spoken about, especially as freelancers where life is a little bit not too stable for normal people.
Hmm.
Basically,
Yeah.
freelancing is not for normal people. It's not built for
No.
normal people. I have an interesting question about work-life balance because based on what you said earlier, when you said that when you were transition before you transition into a full-time freelancing business, you said that you were
Hmm.
working in clinic, you were working on a clinic, and then you had your mobile, so you were bouncing back and forth. My question
Yes.
in between that is, how did you add the work life balance? Was it some kind of integration? I mean, of course, the first, probably you'd agree with me, the first few months would have been hard because you had to adjust between one and the other.
Yes.
So the question here is, how did you manage to integrate from year one? How did you integrate adjustment period from your work life balance between clinic and freelancing to the point that you were ready to transition out? How did you integrate work life balance?
I still don't even think I integrate work life balance, to be honest.
Oh.
If you ask my family, they're gonna say that I work more than my personal life.
Really, really
But
interesting.
I think, to be honest, it was that COVID lockdown is what made me realize that I do need to navigate work life balance. And that's exactly why in 2021 I decided to just stop working at the clinic and put my full 100% energy into my
Mm,
business, because I realized balancing the both, I can only give not say 100%, but it was like I was giving, 70% to one, and then, 30% to the other, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I have to be able to give a good amount of percentage to each, or to both of them, right?
yeah,
And then I just, outweighed my risk and just realized, okay, Shreen, where do you really want to put your effort into? Do you want to put your effort into, you know, growing the clientele at this clinic, where I realize at some point that I was just kind of like a dollar sign for them?
yeah,
It was just like, well, how many clients could massage therapist see today? When I was not available, it was becoming a problem for them, because they had a lot of clientele that were waiting to see me as well too.
yeah,
And I lessened my availability at that time, because I had my family to take care of, and also I did have my business as well that I wanted to run. So I think realizing that you can't do too much, Shreen, because somewhere something's gonna lack, right? And I realized that it
yeah,
was my business lacking, and
yeah,
I was getting a lot more clientele that I couldn't really serve, or represent my business in the way I wanted to. So I decided that dropping working at the clinic and
yeah,
focusing 100% on myself was the way for me, right? Not every RMT has to be an entrepreneur,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
okay to work at these clinics, right? You're still going to make your money, you're still going to have a successful career.
yeah,
But I just realized that in my life I needed to step away from working at the clinic and then just focus 100% on my business.
yeah,
And again, speaking with my mentors, changing little things that I felt like I needed to change to grow my business to represent me as Shireen the RMT. And
yeah.
it worked well for me. But that
Wow.
work-life balance, I'm still working on that.
Well, the way I see it, from this episode alone, I kind of have built that Joseph Campbell storytelling. The
Okay.
story arc where you start from the beginning and you get into the challenges of life and
Yes.
transitioning. You mentioned school, so that was like when you met the mentor, and then you went on the
Yes.
journey, and then you were defeated, and you came back to life, and then going back to normal life. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting storytelling
Thank
tool.
you.
So
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions actually regarding a lot to do with RMT transitioning,
Hmm.
because transitioning, the one question that was in my mind based on what you said after you mentioned 2020 and then 2021 when everything was getting back to normal. When a student graduates as an RMT, do they have to have a mandatory plan or strategy, or wing it at first, see what works, and then go with that?
I think winging it is absolutely fine, because the job market is so high in demand for an RMT. You can wing it. Like when I first paid for my registration and I knew I had my registration, I was just applying to wherever. I didn't even really care. I just
Mhm.
wanted to get a job, is what I want to do. So winging it is I think winging it is absolutely fine. But it's great. They say it's great to have a plan set in place, but
Yeah,
not all the time plans work, right?
yeah,
Sometimes plans, because when I first graduated school, my goal was to just work in a spa.
yeah,
Right? I was like, I only want to work in a spa. I only want to provide relaxation massages, and that's not where I went. I worked in more of a rehabilitation clinic, and I love that part, right? I didn't realize that I had that love for those type of treatments. So,
yeah,
sometimes you can make the plans, but the plans don't always work. So, winging it is just as acceptable. Like I said, the job market is so high,
yeah,
that you have the opportunity to wing it. And I've worked at many clinics, and the reason why I've worked at many clinics, because my mom is always like, you're always moving, where you're practicing. And I'm like, yeah, because I want to make sure that I have all the experience in my career, right? So
interesting.
when I moved from a clinic, it was always just because it wasn't because I hated the clinic, maybe a little bit, but it wasn't because, I was having problems with the clinic or anything like that. It was just because at some point I felt like I've I've gained enough from this atmosphere, right? From this environment.
Yeah.
And I wanted more of a challenge for myself. So anytime when I did transition to a different clinic, I made sure that it was a clinic that was going to be able to challenge me. And what I mean with challenging me is provide me with clients that I wasn't necessarily seeing like in another clinic, right?
Yeah.
Where like at one point I was seeing clients that had a lot of orthopedic surgery, which
Yeah.
I would never be exposed to at like a clinic that deals with a lot of motor vehicle accidents. You wouldn't
Yeah.
be exposed to those type of patients, right? So anytime I transitioned or grew in my career, it was to always better myself and to gain more experience and knowledge in the career. So winging it is fine. I
Yeah.
think I've winged it. I always wing it.
Interesting, interesting. The way I see it is like you already actually technically made a third option for new RMTs is have a one is of course strategy, having a strategy, having a plan in place. For those who
Yes.
have that, they can go with that or winging it. Or the third option is having a plan and strategy and winging it. So that
Yeah.
opens
Yes.
that also opens that conversation so that at least because you mentioned I do agree with you that sometimes plans don't go into play. So whatever you put
Exactly.
on the notebook doesn't really happen in real life. Same as
Exactly.
you also mentioned earlier when you study stuff that you study. Sometimes they don't appear in as a real life case by case basis. You know,
Exactly.
so it's a pretty interesting. It's an interesting conversation. I'm learning a lot. Basically, it looked like you took me to an
Right?
RMT class, and it's
Right?
pretty interesting. It's pretty
soon, soon
interesting.
we'll soon we'll hear that you want to become an RMT soon, right? Because you've been you've been with us for this long. You might want to change careers, Raj?
No, I love podcasting and I love promoting education, and
Yeah.
this is why we do what we do, and promoting education, bringing people to the educational world is an
Yeah.
interesting venture. So yeah, I mean, oh, wow. I would usually I have a follow up question, but a lot of stuff I'm still digesting a lot of the stuff that you're teaching me. Um, but you mentioned the word entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not for anyone. I want to open that because, of
Yeah.
course, you mentioned that there are some RMTs that probably do not want to get into entrepreneurship. And there are
Yeah.
those that probably have to do it for the case of, situations, provide for family or
Yes.
so for what are your thoughts on the experience so far of being an entrepreneur? Because when if we look back at our conversation, you spoke about school, you spoke about college life, and then you transitioning. It was much different because the way I understand it is, of course, this is like the analogy of an artist. You were learning how to
Hmm.
paint. Every level, as you ascended to each level, you learned how to paint. Now, of
Hmm.
course, when you transition into entrepreneurship, you have to sell that painting. So it's a matter of
Right.
learning. It's the matter of being separating between the artist and the art. So
Hmm.
how does how does your experience as an entrepreneur help you on the business side, understanding how to sell yourself or how to sell your craft as a painter, as an artist of your field? How would you put that in a word or something as a form of motivation?
You have to believe in yourself. You have to know what you bring to the table. So in terms of like relating to massage therapy, um, I am very confident in what I can do as a massage therapist. I know that I don't want to, tip my hat a little bit too much, but I know that I am a great massage therapist, and that is just because of the feedback that I get through my clients.
Yeah,
Um, and also, from the people that I've worked with along the years as well too. So you really have to stay confident in what you know how to do, because every massage therapist applies their techniques a little bit different, right? I
yeah,
even
yeah,
in school when I'm teaching and I tell students, like, if you only want to provide relaxation massages, that is fine. If you
yeah,
do not know how to do a deep tissue massage, that is fine as well too, right? You are going to find the clientels that work for you. So just stick to what you know that you're good at in this field
Yeah.
and own it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Like own that craft.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. I that really blew my mind. And then when you mentioned deep tissue massage. Wow, it's very hard to pronounce it. I never knew that massage therapist. Why did I say medical therapist? Massage therapy had its own form of niche. When you said deep tissue massage, that
Yeah.
means if there's one category for that particular skill set, that means there are others that probably haven't been open. That would be interesting,
Yeah.
you know, if you guys spend an hour on that episode, that would be interesting so that you can uncover and unravel
Yeah.
that part of the realm. And for someone who's probably looking to learn more about deep tissue massage and the other niche
Hmm.
skill based and massage therapy, that would be an interesting conversation. Of course, you guys know
Definitely.
what you guys are
Definitely.
doing. I'm just asking questions here. I'm just learning. So I don't really know much about that, but it's pretty interesting that there are niches within massage therapy that opens
Yes.
that
100%.
knowledge of saying. So yeah, wow. There's also an entrepreneur question that I had. Um, how did this is probably an interesting thing because we go back to the analogy of separating the art from the artist, the
Hmm.
art and the salesman. How did you use your skills from massage therapy? I'm sure this probably helped in on your entrepreneurship journey because you know the craft, you know the business, you know the industry. How did you integrate that into your craft as a massage therapist? I'm sure there were a lot of ideas that you integrate a business system that you integrate from
Yeah.
massage therapy into your business that probably is
Hmm.
not on the standard, from probably not an industry standard, because of course
Right.
when you're competing with the big cats, they have their own systems in place. And
Exactly.
I'm sure you have your own saying. How did you go upon learning the stuff from massage therapy, and what are those ideas that are unusual to you that you do in your business that is not usual for the standard business, uh, 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 yeah, mobile business.
Well, let me think about this one. What do I do different? Well, again, most of my clients, even though I go to their home, they say that the experience feels just like they were, going to a clinic or, going to a spa as well too. So I'm happy that I'm able to bring that experience to their home.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of thinking, I think a lot of what I did was a lot of research, right? Like
Mm,
really paying attention to how
interesting.
these big companies ran their businesses, right?
Yeah.
What are little things that they did where, because a lot of times you run into just like, clients making crazy requests and just thinking just because like I'm a sole proprietor, I will do whatever they want them to do, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know why people always want to, I don't even want to say like shit on the small business owner.
Yeah.
That's just how it is because the things that they would request for a small business owner to do, they would never ever ever request for the big businesses to do those type of things. And I never understood that.
Interesting.
But staying grounded, making sure that, I implement my rules and my clients respect those rules. If people are not going to respect how I operate my business, I don't have a problem with letting that person go,
Mm,
right? Because they're going to make
interesting.
my life miserable and they're not going to, uh, you know, make me grow my business in the way I want to, right? So a
Interesting.
lot of research with, looking at other businesses, how they ran their business. Again, trial and error. I think a
Yeah.
lot that's what happened a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
A lot of mistakes were made. Realizing that, maybe I can't. There was a point in time where I didn't even want to see one client, right? Because I felt like, it was a waste of my time to travel just to see one patient and
Yeah.
then, go home after that. So I started more advertising myself where, I wanted groups to book me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
family, groups of family, where I can just go to the home. treat the whole family, and then I can call it a day pretty much, because I'm seeing about 4 to 5 people in that one visit. So even transitioning to trying to there's always a goal to build up the clientele for sure, but then making working smarter not harder, pretty much that saying, right? Working smarter
Yeah.
not harder, right? So
Yeah.
transitioning to like offering more group sessions, where it's like, hey, if you actually book more than, there was one point where I was giving discounts for that. Like if you book more than 2 people in
Yeah.
the location, these if you booked an hour, you would be able to get a discount, for your hour massage, because you booked more people in that location. So doing those type of things did help me with growing that business, and becoming a lot more successful with the making earnings with this mobile business. Yes.
Wow, it's pretty
Yeah.
powerful, pretty powerful stuff. That's interesting. Never really expected that. I mean, entrepreneurship, yeah, it's not really one of those type of things that, like I said, it's not for normal people.
No.
There will be there will be ups when they say. I remember this one from a podcast that I was listening. They said that
Hmm.
in entrepreneurship, high when they say the ups are ups, these are the higher ups that it's beyond your expectation, but the lowest are the
Right.
lowest. So
Right.
it's pretty interesting, and of course you mentioned about your work life balance. That's a little bit harder. That's a harder thing because of course
Yes.
over time probably integration it will take, because you mentioned that you were still adjusting, so it's just a matter of probably over a few more years, it's just a matter of adjusting. So
Hmm.
I guess before we wrap this up, do you have anything that you could say for student RMTs, student who are transitioning out of school and looking into getting into business, and entrepreneur RMTs, for these three guys? What message would you love to give them?
Let me think. I think today my common the common denominator here was having that support system. So I think,
Yeah.
again, finding that close knit group of friends plus professionals will help you navigate yourself through entrepreneurship, even, through working as an employee, because they're the ones that are going to understand and be able to help you grow in your career, right? Like they're not the ones growing, but having that ear, that, sympathetic ear, or even that listening ear that understands, the goals that you want to accomplish, will understand the conflicts that you're going through in work, and then also understand the milestones that you were able to succeed and push through. So I would say having that support system, through your family as well too, but most importantly having that professionalism, that professional support system, and having friends that are like-minded and within the same career as you, I think will help you with navigating yourself, because you need that, right? Because there's days where you're just like, and your spouse at home may not understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shireen, for the wonderful conversation. I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of RMTs out there are inspired, and just like me, I'm excited to hear more about this podcast. Of course, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there who want to know more about your business. Do you mind sharing your business?
Yes. Well, as you guys know, I'm a mobile registered massage therapist. I also do mentorship for RMTs, and I also offer continuing education courses and tutoring for those who want to take the licensing exams. You can find me on Instagram under Shireen the RMT. Also, my website, Shireen the RMT, and TikTok, Shireen the RMT. Okay?
Awesome, awesome. So, guys, that is the episode for now. I'm sure you guys are inspired, and stay tuned for the next episode. I don't even know what the number is, but guys,
Next
and
episode, Rogers and RMT.
thank you, guys. Cheers, guys, and see you around.
All right. Bye.